The first time I saw her was at my daughter's school, standing in the hallway with reading glasses perched on her nose, reviewing some papers. I never expected that casual joke about asking her out would change everything. When she looked up at me with those knowing eyes and asked, "Doesn't it bother you I'm older?" I had no idea how to respond. But now, 3 years later, as I watch her helping my daughter with college applications, I realize age was the least important thing about us. If you've ever wondered if love gets a second chance after loss, stick around. This is my story. Hey everyone, if this is your first time here, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to join our community. Your support means everything, and there are more stories like this one coming your way. Now let me take you back to where it all began. I never planned on being a single dad. Nobody does, I guess. My name is Daniel, and 5 years ago my wife Melissa passed away after a short but brutal battle with cancer, leaving me alone with our 12-year-old daughter Emma. The first 2 years were a blur of grief, microwave dinners, and trying to figure out how to do Emma's hair for school. I was 38, working as an architect from home, and completely lost in this new reality. Emma was my world, but I was terrified I was failing her. She went from being this bright, bubbly kid to a quiet teenager who spent most of her time in her room. The counselor said it was normal grief, but it didn't make it any easier to watch. I tried everything. Movie nights, cooking disasters that ended with us ordering pizza, even attempting to learn TikTok dances, which only made her roll her eyes and almost smile. Almost. By the time Emma started high school, we had settled into a routine. Not a happy one, but functional. I threw myself into work, and Emma threw herself into academics. We were surviving, not living. I hadn't even thought about dating. The idea seemed impossible, disrespectful somehow, though Melissa had made me promise not to spend my life alone. "You're too annoying to be alone forever," she joked from her hospital bed. "You need someone to appreciate your terrible puns." It was parent-teacher night when I first met Catherine, Emma's English teacher. She wasn't what I expected. Most of Emma's teachers were young, fresh out of college with boundless enthusiasm. Catherine Morgan was different. She had laugh lines around her eyes and silver streaks in her dark hair that she didn't bother to hide. She spoke about literature with such passion that even I, who hadn't read a novel since college, found myself wanting to pick up The Great Gatsby again. "Emma has a remarkable mind," she told me, showing me a paper Emma had written. "She analyzes texts like someone twice her age. But I'm concerned about her connection with her peers. She's isolating herself." I nodded, the familiar guilt washing over me. She's been through a lot, we both have. Something in Catherine's eyes softened. "I know. She mentioned her mother in one of her essays. I lost my husband 6 years ago, car accident. It reshapes everything, doesn't it?" That moment of shared understanding felt like taking a full breath after years of shallow ones. We talked for longer than the allotted 15 minutes, and other parents were giving us annoyed looks. I reluctantly stood to leave. "It was nice talking to you, Ms. Morgan," I said, extending my hand. "Catherine, please," she replied, her handshake firm. "And likewise, Mr. Reynolds." "Daniel," I corrected, and for the first time in years, I felt a flutter of something that wasn't grief or anxiety. Over the next few months, I found myself volunteering for school events I would have normally avoided. Book fairs, bake sales, chaperoning field trips. Emma was suspicious but seemed pleased by my sudden interest in school activities. What she didn't know was that I was looking for excuses to run into Catherine. We developed a friendship, cautious at first. Coffee after school events, discussions about Emma's progress that evolved into conversations about books, films, our shared experience of loss. Catherine was 51, 13 years older than me, with a grown son in graduate school. She had been a literature professor before deciding to teach high school after her husband died. "Teenagers are more honest," she explained. "They haven't learned to hide their emotions behind intellectual arguments yet." I found myself looking forward to our conversations, the way she challenged my thinking, her dry humor that matched my own. She never wore makeup, dressed in comfortable clothes rather than trying to look younger, and carried herself with a confidence I found magnetic. But I never considered it could be more than friendship. She was Emma's teacher. She was older, and I wasn't sure I was ready. It was at the spring fundraiser that everything changed. Emma had gone home with a friend, and I was helping Catherine carry boxes of unsold books to her car. We were laughing about some ridiculous romance novel we'd found in the donations when I tripped, sending books flying everywhere. As we knelt, gathering books in the dim parking lot, our hands touched reaching for the same paperback. I looked up, and suddenly we were too close, her eyes reflecting the streetlights. "We should get coffee sometime," I said, then immediately backpedaled. "I mean, not school coffee, real coffee, or dinner, as friends, or not as friends. I'm not very good at this, am I?" Catherine sat back on her heels, studying me with an expression I couldn't read. "Doesn't it bother you I'm older?" she asked quietly. The question caught me off guard. In all our conversations, age had never seemed relevant. I looked at her, really looked at her. The silver in her hair, the lines around her eyes that deepened when she smiled, the confidence in her posture that came from decades of knowing exactly who she was. "The only thing that bothers me," I said slowly, "is the thought of not seeing you outside of school events." She smiled then, a real smile that reached her eyes. "Tuesday, 7 p.m. There's a little Italian place on Maple Street. I'll meet you there." That first date was a disaster. I spilled wine on her blouse. We discovered the restaurant had changed owners and the food was terrible. And halfway through dinner, Emma called having a meltdown about a fight with her friend. Catherine helped me talk Emma through it, then suggested we get ice cream from the corner store and eat it on a park bench instead. Sitting there, watching Catherine lick chocolate ice cream while discussing whether Catcher in the Rye was overrated, she thought, yes, I disagreed. I felt something I hadn't in years. Possibility. We took things slowly, very slowly. Catherine was adamant about maintaining professional boundaries at school, and I respected that. We didn't tell Emma right away, which in retrospect was a mistake. When she finally found out after walking in on us kissing in the kitchen 3 months later, she was furious. "My English teacher? Seriously, Dad? Everyone's going to talk about this," she screamed, before slamming her bedroom door. I stood in the hallway feeling like the worst father in the world. Catherine squeezed my hand. "Give her time. This isn't just about me being her teacher. This is about her mom." She was right, of course. That night after Catherine left, I knocked on Emma's door. No answer. I sat on the floor outside her room. "I miss her too, you know," I said to the closed door. "Every day. And I felt guilty the first time I laughed after she died, like I was betraying her somehow. The first time I went a whole day without crying, I cried the next day because of it." The door cracked open. Emma's face was blotchy from crying. "Catherine isn't replacing your mom," I continued. "No one could. But she makes me feel less broken. And I think your mom would want that for both of us." Emma slid down to sit beside me, her back against the wall. "It's weird," she whispered. "I know. She gives me grades. I know that too. She's old." I laughed. "She's 13 years older than me. That's the same age difference as between you and your friend Zoe. Does Zoe seem ancient to you?" Emma rolled her eyes. "That's different, is it?" She was quiet for a long time. "Does she make you happy?" she finally asked. I considered the question carefully. "She makes me remember that I can be happy. That's even more important." Emma leaned her head on my shoulder, something she hadn't done in years. "I guess that's okay then." It wasn't an enthusiastic endorsement, but it was a start. The next few months were a careful balancing act. Catherine and I continued dating, but kept things professional when Emma was around. Emma was civil but distant with Catherine outside of school, and I tried not to push either of them. The turning point came unexpectedly. Emma had been working on a major research paper, staying up late, stressing herself to the point of making herself sick. I tried to help, but English literature wasn't my strong suit. One night, I came home from a client meeting to find them at the dining table, books spread everywhere, deep in discussion about symbolism and beloved. They didn't notice me at first, and I stood watching them, struck by how animated Emma was, gesturing with her hands the way her mother used to. Catherine wasn't teaching, she was engaging, challenging Emma's ideas, building on them. They were equals in that moment. Later, after Emma went to bed, Catherine and I sat on the porch swing. "Thank you for helping her," I said. Catherine shrugged. She's brilliant. She just needed someone to bounce ideas off of. Still, you didn't have to spend your evening tutoring your boyfriend's kid. She looked at me, serious suddenly. Is that what you think I was doing? Daniel, I care about Emma, not because she's your daughter or my student, but because she's Emma. She's extraordinary. And she's part of who you are. I kissed her then, overwhelmed by the simple truth of it. Catherine saw people, really saw them. It was what made her an exceptional teacher, and what was making me fall in love with her. Our relationship deepened over the next year. We had our challenges, the whispers at school events, the raised eyebrows from some of my friends when they met her, Catherine's occasional insecurity about our age difference, but we also had movie nights where the three of us argued about plot holes, Sunday morning pancake competitions, and quiet evenings when Emma was out with friends, just talking for hours. Catherine never tried to mother Emma, and Emma never fully relaxed around Catherine, but they developed their own relationship based on mutual respect and a shared love of debate. And I found myself healing in ways I hadn't thought possible. The real test came when Catherine's lease ended, and we discussed her moving in. Emma was 16 by then, more mature, but still navigating her own grief and identity. How would you feel about Catherine living here? I asked her one evening. Emma was quiet, picking at a thread on her jeans. Would she get rid of Mom's stuff? The question broke my heart. We still had Melissa's clothes in the closet, her books on the shelves, her coffee mug in the cabinet that no one used. No, I said firmly. Those decisions would be yours and mine. When we're ready. Catherine understands that. Emma nodded slowly. Okay, but I don't want to call her Mom or anything. No one's asking you to, and she can't use Mom's mug. Of course not. Emma took a deep breath. Then I guess it's okay. She makes good pancakes at least. It wasn't a ringing endorsement, but it was honest. And that was all I could ask for. Catherine moved in that summer. There were adjustments, her books taking over every available surface, her preference for classical music in the mornings, her strict rule about no phones at the dinner table. But there were beautiful moments too, finding her and Emma asleep on the couch after a movie marathon, the garden she started in the backyard, the way she knew when I needed space and when I needed company. One night, about 6 months after she moved in, I found Catherine sitting in the dark living room, holding Melissa's mug. My heart stopped. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I wasn't going to use it. I wanted to understand her better. I sat beside her, taking the mug gently and setting it on the coffee table. What do you want to know? Was she funny? Emma has this dry humor that I don't think comes from you. I laughed. Melissa could make a funeral director crack up. She had this way of observing people that was so accurate it was scary. Like Emma. Exactly like Emma. Catherine leaned against me. I wish I could have known her. She would have liked you, I said, surprised to find I meant it. She always said I needed someone who wouldn't let me get away with my bullshit. Smart woman. We sat in comfortable silence and I realized something profound. Catherine wasn't threatened by Melissa's memory. She honored it, made space for it in our lives. It was one of the many reasons I loved her. The next morning I woke up early and drove to the jewelry store before work. I proposed on Catherine's 53rd birthday, during a weekend trip to the coast. Emma had helped me plan it, selecting the restaurant and even helping choose the ring, a sapphire instead of a diamond because Catherine always wears blue. Dad, pay attention. When I got down on one knee, Catherine looked shocked, then concerned. Are you sure? She whispered. I'm going to be an old woman while you're still in your prime. I took her hand. I've never been more sure of anything, and I hate to break it to you, but I'm no spring chicken myself. She laughed through tears. That's exactly the kind of terrible joke that makes me love you. Is that a yes? She nodded, and I slipped the ring on her finger. When we got back to our room, there was a text from Emma. Did she say yes? If not, I'm disowning both of you. We were married 6 months later in our backyard. A small ceremony with close friends and family. Emma was my best woman, wearing a suit that matched mine. Catherine's son, Michael, walked her down the aisle. There was a moment during the ceremony when Emma placed Melissa's wedding ring in my hand. We had decided to incorporate it into the new rings, melted down and reshaped. a physical representation of how love transforms but doesn't disappear. Life settled into a new normal. Catherine continued teaching, I expanded my architecture firm, and Emma thrived, eventually being accepted to several top universities. The night after we dropped her off at college, Catherine and I sat on the porch swing, the house too quiet behind us. Do you regret any of it? She asked suddenly. What do you mean? Taking a chance on an older woman, having to navigate all the complications with Emma. Wouldn't it have been easier to find someone younger, someone who could have given you more children, someone without all my baggage? I considered her question seriously, because Catherine deserved nothing less than honesty. I don't believe in easy love, I said finally. I believe in real love, and real love sees all of someone, their age, their history, their quirks and flaws, and chooses them anyway, every day. Catherine rested her head on my shoulder, her silver-streaked hair catching the porch light. When did you get so wise? I married my daughter's English teacher. Some of that literary wisdom was bound to rub off. She laughed and squeezed my hand, her wedding ring catching the light, new metal surrounding the small diamond from Melissa's ring. Transformation and continuity in one small circle. Now, 3 years into our marriage, as I watch Catherine helping Emma with her graduate school applications during a weekend visit home, I'm struck by how life surprises you. I never expected to be widowed at 38, never expected to fall in love with a woman 13 years my senior, never expected to find a second chance at happiness that honored my first love rather than replaced it. Age, I've learned, is just one small fact about a person, far less important than their kindness, their wisdom, their capacity for love. Catherine's silver hair spread, and the lines around her eyes have deepened. She's beautiful to me in ways that have nothing to do with conventional standards, and everything to do with who she is. Emma catches me staring and rolls her eyes, but there's affection in it now. You guys are gross, she says, but she's smiling. Later, when Emma has gone out with friends, Catherine and I walk through the neighborhood, holding hands like teenagers. Any regrets? I ask, echoing her question from years ago. She stops, turning to face me. Just one. My heart skips. What's that? That I wasted time worrying about being older instead of just loving you sooner. I pull her close, there under the streetlights where anyone can see. We have all the time we need, I tell her, and in that moment I believe it with my whole heart. So if you're watching this and wondering if love gets a second chance, if age is really the barrier it seems, if blended families can find their way through the